This is the 46 of 46 podcast Summit Sessions, where we'll talk all things Adirondack, backcountry, and beyond. From high peak stories and adventures to trail tips and tricks, we'll dive deep into the heart of these mountains and the people who passionately climb them. Adirondack maps and spruce traps, bushwhacks and backpacks. It's all here on the 46 of 46 Summit Sessions. Hello out there and welcome back to another Summit Sessions here on the FKT of FKT podcast. Just kidding. Though lately it kind of feels like that here on the Summit Sessions, am I right? Well, this week on the 46 of 46 podcast, I'll be back inside our beloved high peaks to hear the story of the first officially documented female unsupported thru hike of the 46 high peaks here in the ADK. In case you're not aware, an unsupported thru hike means they hiked all 46 high peaks without any support from outside people and as a thru hike, meaning once they entered the high peaks wilderness, they stayed in the woods until they were done. No cars to drive them to other trailheads, just into the woods, hike, camp, repeat, until they summited all 46 high peaks. A truly incredible feat. And since this is the first officially documented unsupported female thru hike, the two ladies set the first FKT of the route, completing all 46 high peaks in 7 days, 4 hours, and 50 minutes. Starting on September 9th, 2020 at 10:15 a.m. in the Seward Range, and finishing on September 17th at 3:05 p.m. on Whiteface and Esther. So a big congratulations to Bethany Garretson and Katie Rhodes on completing their thru hike. Today I'll be speaking with both Bethany and Katie to get the whole scoop as to what these ladies experienced out there on the trail. Well, thanks to both of you for coming on the 46 of 46 podcast, and a big congratulations to you both for completing your thru hike.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. Great to be here.
Terrific. It will be very interesting. I've never had two guests on the show, so this will be a nice, unique experience, and I think it will make more sense since it was both of you, so it'll give us a better idea as to exactly what happened out there. But it's been 6 days since you finished. Have you both recovered, or are you kind of still recovering?
I'm definitely still recovering. This was my first major endurance outing like this. So I wasn't really sure what to expect, and lots of eating, lots of sleeping.
Sure.
And I'm definitely getting, kind of recovering quite a bit every day. I do have a little bit of irritation on my Achilles that I'm dealing with right now, but it's all acute stuff, and I'm on the up and up, so I'm not hobbling anymore, so that's good.
That's a plus.
That's good. Yeah, and I'm feeling pretty good. Ready to go hike something, I think.
Oh, you're ready to get right back out there.
Yeah.
Perfect. And real quick, before we even get into it, I want to send a shout out to Chloe Gatulik, who had Bethany as a professor at Paul Smith's College and emailed me literally this afternoon asking if I would have you on the show to tell the story. So shout out to Chloe. Here you are already on the podcast.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Very cool.
Totally. All right, so let's start with just a background on both of you guys. You can just give us how'd you get into the outdoors? Where'd you grow up? Just a little background on yourself. We'll start with Bethany.
All right. So I am from Cherry Valley, New York, which is along the Mohawk River, central New York. And I grew up on a farm, and I grew up being a two-sport athlete, soccer and basketball. And I just also grew up working on farms and walking a lot in the woods. And I've always loved exploring since a young age. Had a ton of National Geographics in my dad's closet. He just kept them all. And so I would always pretend to be an explorer. And then I came to Paul Smith as a college student, and that's what really introduced me to the Adirondacks. I fell absolutely in love with everything from climbing to hiking to backpacking. And long story short, I became a wilderness therapy instructor, and then I became a college instructor, and I teach what I preach, and I spend as much time outside as I can, and I love helping others do that as well.
That's terrific. So your whole life basically revolves around the outdoors.
Yep. Yeah, I love being outside. It's where I want to be.
Sure, that's exciting. Cool.
Yeah.
All right, Katie, tell us about your background.
So I grew up in a little town called Norwich, New York, actually quite close to Cherry Valley.
Yep.
And I was not an athlete. I was not fit in any way. I did everything I could to get out of the 1 mile run during gym in high school. And I really didn't discover my love for the outdoors until my freshman year of college. I went to SUNY Potsdam for my freshman year, and for my PE credits, I was like, oh man, what am I going to do? This is always the tough part for me. And so I saw this course called Backpacking 101. And I was like, oh, that sounds kind of cool. Whatever, I'll take that. And it changed my life. I remember we were hiking into DeBar Mountain for a weekend overnight. And we hiked and we hiked and we hiked and we hiked. And I was so exhausted. And the professor said, okay, now we're at the base of the mountain. And I was like, what? How have we not even started climbing this mountain yet? This is crazy, you know? Because I just wasn't conditioned in any way for it. So we ended up ascending the mountain and coming back down and camping out for the night. And I had no idea what I was doing. I was totally in over my head. I was sore and I was exhausted and I loved every second of it. And I was hooked at that point, you know. You can put a bunch of stuff on your back and you can walk around in the woods for a couple weeks at a time, you know. I just thought it was the greatest thing in the world. It was such an amazing concept. So from there, I joined the Wilderness Leadership Program through SUNY Potsdam, which is an amazing 2-year program. It's a pretty intensive program. You do a full year of courses, everything from land navigation to, technical gear knowledge, everything you can imagine to do with the outdoors and leadership. And then that culminates in a 2-week, for us, it culminated in a 2-week bushwhack of the Siamese Ponds Wilderness, where it rained on us every single day, except I believe one. And again, it was the most difficult journey of my life. It was the most difficult 2 weeks of my life. And I loved every second of it. And I wouldn't have replaced it for anything. And then from there, year 2, again, we had formal training throughout the year. And our final exam, if you will, was 28 days in the Gila Wilderness in New Mexico. And that was just a totally life-changing experience. And from there, I knew, you know, that had to be part of my life. So I went on to become a New York State licensed guide. So I do some guiding with Northern Ridgeline Wilderness Solutions out of Albany, New York now. I also joined Adirondack Mountain Rescue, which is a technical SAR team out of Clifton Park, New York. And I act as both a field search member for them, as well as their wilderness education coordinator. So we do a lot of public outreach, which is something that I'm really passionate about. I do believe knowledge is power. And that when it comes to a lot of the overuse and impact issues that we're having in the Adirondacks, educating people is one of the main things that we can do to drive that down.
Very cool. And it all started with Backpacking 101 at Potsdam.
Yep.
That's incredible. I didn't even really know that the outdoors was, you know, a college curriculum, let alone classes in backpacking in particular. That's incredible. Yeah, it's something I'm not familiar with at all, but that's really interesting to hear. And it's funny that both of you came to college in or around the Adirondacks, and then on a whim went hiking, took a class, and it took over your life. The outdoors, especially up here, really can do that to a person.
Oh yeah,
definitely.
Cool. And let's just get right into it. So you guys just completed all 46 high peaks in 7 days. Was this the first time you guys completed all of them, or were you already familiar with the high peaks?
We were already 46ers. This was at least my 6th or 7th round
Awesome.
of the 46. Yeah.
Very cool. So let's just go into what made you both decide to tackle this challenge in particular, to through hike them unsupported, and then what made you decide to do it together. And whoever wants to answer can go for it.
Okay. Well, I'll start because it started for me longer ago, if that makes sense. Because in 2009, I was a recent college grad from Paul Smith's, and I read about these two guys who had just completed the thru hike unsupported, Corey and Jan. And there was this awesome spread in, I think it was the Explorer, and it had their days broken out and it had their gear broken out. And I just started hiking the high peaks that summer. And all I knew about hiking was that I loved it. I loved it the longer I went too. So like if I could hike all day, that just made me happier. And I just didn't seem to like get tired in the mountains. They only gave me energy. And I was starting to backpack then, and I was like, you know what? That's something I want to do someday. And I just kind of wrote it down, and I kept that article and I kept looking back on it. Got to meet Jan and Corey over the years, talked to them about their route. And, it was always there. And in 2016, I did attempt it, and I got to day 5 on the range and ended up coming out because the temperatures were just going really, really high. It was about 95 and humid, and I didn't feel comfortable going at the pace I needed to go under those conditions. And I was also solo, so I just didn't feel like I really had a safety net, and didn't want to be a strain on backcountry rescue efforts. And FKTs aren't worth that, it's not worth pushing it to that limit. So, but coming out of 2016, I knew I didn't want to do it solo again, and I knew I wanted a partner. And ever since then, I had been looking, but there's not that many people who really want to do it. So it was just a coincidence. Katie and she found me over the summer because of some other FKTs I had done, and she reached out to me about it. And once I heard about her and her background and some of the stuff she had done, I was like, let's do this together if we get a window in September, which I wanted September because the temps are cooler, the humidity is down, and also it's just not as crowded in the high peaks.
Sure. And you had a pretty good week too. I mean, you had a really nice window of temperature.
We did.
Weather.
Yep, we did. Yep.
Except for day 4.
Yep. Except for that little storm we got. It was pretty ideal. It was those classic bluebird days that you want.
Mm-hmm.
You just want that. Yeah.
Definitely. And Katie, tell us about why you decided to tackle this.
So it's kind of just something I've had in the back of my head for not too long. I would say several months before we made our attempt. It's something that just kind of popped in my head. I was out in the woods doing a trail run, and you know how sometimes when you're in the middle of an effort, things just kind of pop in, and you go, okay, that's something to think about later. And I guess part of it was I just felt like it would be a really unique and beautiful way to experience the 46. I'm not good at many things, but I'm pretty good at hiking. And when I've gone out and done the high peaks with friends, it's always been a beautiful, enjoyable time, but I never felt like I was really pushing my limits. And that's something that I wanted to challenge myself with. And this trip definitely did that for me. So that was a wonderful thing. So I got online when I got home, and I just kind of putzed around the fastest known time website. And what I saw was a lot of male names. And I'm kind of the poster child for representation matters, because Bethany's is the only female name I saw associated with any of the 46 related FKTs. And honestly, if I hadn't seen her name up there, I mean, I wouldn't be talking to you about this right now. I'm certain I wouldn't have attempted it. But that kind of gave me strength to see a woman's name up there and go, okay, somebody else is doing this. And